speech dermatologist for skin cancer treatment the following day.
O'Brien was the best friend I ever had.
So far, Dave's young.
I lived here. I made a vow to him, and I told him, I said, one day I'm going to get you out. I wanted him to be free. And I take my promises really, really seriously.
David O'Brien told me that Boyd was obsessed with helping O'Brien get out of prison and escape because of all his appeals being denied. And he really thought a lot of O'Brien, and I think he was willing to do anything it took to get him out of jail.
Guess the officer will be there waiting for spring.
Okay? Thanks, Steve.
This is the only dermatologist office in town. Okay, so this is got to be a place to stay.
With inside knowledge of how prison transfers operate, Van Hoyt is confident that he can pull this off.
Okay, it's a prison transport, man. I've been in 100 of them. I know how they work.
But he can't do it alone. He convinces Valdez that O'Brien would make a great addition to their team. Valdez agrees to help.
Figured nobody's going to get hurt, and we'll leave. In my mind, it was very simple. It's like a lot of things. You think nothing will go wrong.
June 24th, 1987, 8 a.m. Van Hoyt and Valdez ease into the parking lot of the doctor's office. They identify the entrance the guards will be using.
I know we needed to park somewhere where we could keep our eye on that door in the parking lot so that when they arrive, we could throw down.
They park nearby and patiently sit and wait for their friend to arrive. The hours pass slowly. Finally, at 1:15 p.m., they spot the familiar white prison van. The plan is to ambush both guards before they exit the vehicle, catching them by surprise.
The van pulled up. I said, let's go, let's go.
Van Hoyt and Valdez pulled into action.
There's an officer sitting in the seat. He's looking at a clipboard. I tapped the barrel of the gun on the window. He looks up, and I pointed the gun at him. I opened the door. I said, get out.
Valdez forces Officer Fred Griffiths toward the back of the van to unlock the door. Meanwhile, Van Hoyt disarms Officer Steve Turner and forces him to lie underneath the van. But as Turner complies, Van Hoyt hears something that was not part of the plan. The sound of a sudden echo of gunshots.
Since we started working with Mountain, we've gotten thousands of visitors every month, close to 40%.
We are live, but we ain't quite ready yet.
Nelson.
Morning. All right, let's get started. How many tap clients do we have in here? Two. Yeah. Were you guys in the group yesterday? Did you sign a sheet?
One.
I think I did. I was signing with the wrong one the first day, but they go.
It was a
I
sheet.
did give it to them yesterday.
Okay,
Yes,
but because I cannot find the tap sheet, so you may need to redo one for yesterday. Make sure we have it. So that's the first thing, just make sure we get our sheet signed.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know. I didn't know it was the first thing.
Yeah, it's a little different. So we may have to get two of those tap sheets because, like I said, I can't find the tap sheet from yesterday. So make sure you get those signed out. Same thing over at North. I'm going to be over there.
And you only write the dates for.
You can do one for yesterday. It'd have to be two separate sheets.
Okay.
Do one for yesterday and one for today. And I'll be over to North after a while to pick up some of that stuff.
Here's one for yesterday.
Thank you. You're awesome. Appreciate that.
I get a car, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
People want to party and come like this way?
Absolutely, man. Right now the only reason you don't have a car, that everybody hadn't been given a car, we can't figure out how to get all those things under the Christmas tree over there. But I do notice that we do have a pretty nice looking Christmas tree up there. That's a big old thing. That's beautiful. I have mine up at my home, but I haven't gotten the lights on it or anything like that. I just hadn't had the time. But tomorrow afternoon, I'm going to put a light on that thing or something. Don't know really how it's going to go today. I'm not feeling that well, so, we may shut down a little early. But we're going to continue in the same vein. We're going to continue to get we got about half of the anger types done yesterday, and we're going to go make sure that we've got the rest of the anger thing done this morning. So, what are the rules?
No eating in class.
No eating in class. Bring your book to class. Be in class on time. All of that kind of stuff. We're trying to do that so that we can get ourselves lined out for when we get out of here, right? So everybody has their book. If you're new and you don't have a book here or even over at North, then let your counselor know that you need a book, because we all have to have a book. We look at page 21. Sometimes right now we're not going through the book in the class here, but everybody should be going through their book on their own. But wherever we are in the book, you go back to where you're supposed to be in your book. Right? You begin at the beginning of the book and you end at the end of the book, right? Mm-hmm. That's where that goes. So there's a reasoning. There's a reason for that, because the book is really good. The program that goes through the book, that follows the book, is very good. So please do that. We're still looking at emotions this morning. Anger is emotion. What type of emotion is anger?
Fear.
Fear. What is a secondary emotion? Right. That's really, really, really important. So why is that so important?
Because we make ourselves angry.
Yeah, because we use anger as an excuse. It is a good excuse for bad behavior. I did that because I was angry. I did that because he made me angry. She made me angry. I did that because he came to group late. Because I got angry because he came to group late. I can't help it. And all of those kinds of things. And we do a lot of stuff. And the reason we're talking about it at this time is because Christmas is right around the corner, about 2 weeks away, right? Today's 12th. So 2 weeks, it'll be Christmas. And a lot of people suffer from anger issues during Christmas. Because it's just the way it is. And a lot of the time, we're here in doing something, or being in a place, or being somewhere that we really would rather be at home, right? We don't really want to be here. So sometimes that can get into a place where we respond to that in anger. So that's why we're dealing with all of that. We looked at the emotional health. Usually when we first start, we're in denial, and then we move to a place where we may be accepting it just a little bit. Then at some point, once we start to accept the fact that there may be some issues emotionally that we have to deal with, we decide to take some action. And that action is going to help us to build some self-esteem and get some healing from those issues. Today, the last stage of that is that we find meaning and understanding in our emotional health. We have a rational understanding of your emotional health. Now, how many people in here feel like they might be an emotional person? Everybody in here is an emotional. We all have emotions. There are some people out there who don't. What are they called?
Outliers.
What?
Outliers.
Outliers. Yeah, that's a good word. I'm glad you got that thing down.
I learned that from you.
Yeah, no doubt. But these guys are sociopaths. right? There's sociopaths out there that can kill people, hurt people, wound people, even people in their family. They have no regrets. They have no feelings. They have none of that. But they are few and far between. A real, actual, factual sociopath is about 1 in 8 million. So there's not a lot of those folks. So all of us here, we are emotional beings. That means I can hurt your feelings. That means I can cause you to allow yourself to get angry. I've done that in this group. I've said something, done something.
No.
And I've had people in this group look at me like I was something they wanted to scrape off the bottom of their shoe. You know, so what does that tell me? That even us, even we have emotions and we have to learn to deal with them. One of the biggest emotions that we deal with, male and female, is anger. Anger causes us more trouble than any other emotion. Anger causes us a whole lot of relationship issues. Anger causes us a whole lot of social issues. It causes us issues with the police. It causes us issues with our family. It causes us issues with just about everybody. If you will remember back when you had your last episode of anger, you will note that it didn't turn out well. So, if you're honest with yourself. So, we have a rational understanding that we are emotional beings. You are fully participating in maintenance and you accept the work you are doing as necessary for ongoing positive emotional health. So, I may need to go see a therapist. Is that true? Sometimes it's a good thing to go see a therapist. Sometimes it's a good thing to go see a counselor. Sometimes it's a good thing to go talk to your pastor. Sometimes it's a good thing to go talk to someone. We have sponsors, we have family members, we have sober support people that we can go talk to about these issues in our lives. And I'll tell you what, a problem shared is a problem halved. We will feel better about it when we talk to somebody about it, right? We will. You know, if you haven't noticed that, give it a shot. And, you know, we do feel better when we go do all of those kinds of things. So we're going to be talking about some different types of anger. Again, we were speaking up through that. We were talking about that. I'm going to say something and probably I will totally regret it. So I'm going to say it anyway. So, you know, because Christmas coming, I'm going to be making a few more of these anger books. And so if somebody would like one of these anger books, if you will let me know, if you'll let me know over there at North that you would like one, then we'll see about getting one. I can make a bunch of them, but I've had folks ask for them. So if you'd like one, just get that information to me. Last time we did it, it's several months ago. We have several people that wanted them. So just let me know. I'm going to be making some of them. It probably will be next week because, you know, I have to copy all of those things and then I have to put these little things right here on them. And I wouldn't count on getting them with the plastic backing, you know, because I had to go buy that. It's $25 for a pack of them. I ain't buying another pack of them. That's it. But just let me know and we'll see that you get one. And and there's some of the stuff in there may be helpful to you, right? And this is a book that was written for the counselors that work for me, not here, somewhere else. And it talks about how to deal with anger, how to help their clients deal with anger. So you can take a look at that and see how the counselor is working toward it. So the next one, our goal for today is to learn a bit more about anger. We still have the guy up here. What's one of the most treacherous things about anger? What's one big deal about anger that we need to remember?
You choose to.
Yeah, you choose to get angry. It's not a primary emotion. It's a secondary emotion. So it is your choice. Every time you ever got in anger, you wanted to. You did that because you were power thrusting. because you didn't know it was your own choice. You didn't know you didn't have to do it. All of those kinds of things. But the next big thing is what?
And control.
Y'all forgot all about all.
IQ.
Yeah, your IQ drops about your IQ drops about 40 points. So you get to that place. This is why you do stupid stuff when we're angry. This is why we do stuff that we wouldn't normally do. We say things we wouldn't normally say because we're angry. And then when that person calls us on it, or the company calls you on it, or something like that, we want to go back and blame the anger. It's not the anger's blame. It's not their fault. It's not the anger's fault. It's my own fault. Because I chose to get angry, knowing all along that when I get angry, my IQ is going to drop. And we do know that this is not 40 points for every person. That's the average, right? Because some people it's going to be more, and you can lose 45 points or 50 points, or it's going to be less, and you may only lose 30 points, right? But it's always different, always like that. But it's going to happen to us that our thinking capacity, our ability to reason, is going to be lessened by the fact that we're angry. That's why we'll tell people stuff and we'll do stuff and we'll, have you ever seen anybody driving angry? I was going to Houston one day. And y'all know, anybody here ever driven down 10 to Houston?
Yes.
Yeah, that's where all the good dope is. So you have to drive down 10 to get to it, right? Yeah. Yeah. I know y'all were going there for fully holistic reasons. You weren't going there for drugs, but that's the truth. So I was going there, and y'all know where, if you can remember where the old and lost River Bridge is, right past that is when you move, you take an exit there to go to Old River. And there's a big old service station there now. Big old beautiful service station, but it used to not be there, of course. It had to be built, but way before that thing was built, I was driving. There's just a big old field out there, and I was driving to Houston to do something or other. I do not like to go to Houston. I don't want to go to Houston, but I was driving to Houston to do something, and a guy took that exit like at about 100 miles per hour. He ran through the stop sign, ran across the highway, the road down there, went up the other side, way over into that field, and then just put his truck on its nose, stopping that. And when he stopped it, a girl got out on the other side of it and hit the brakes. She was getting out of there. So what do you think happened?
Got an argument.
Yeah, they got into a fight. She said did something that he allowed to make him angry to the point where he did what? Something complete. He could have killed both of them. Because he ran through the stop sign down there, didn't check anything. He's running 100 miles an hour, and he ran off in the field. He could have killed both of them. I'll never forget that. That was the stupidest thing I guess I've ever seen. That was just dumber than a stump, And just because he's angry, because look, I know if I go down there and run that stop sign, I have a friend of mine, his name is Ronnie, who was killed doing that. Ronnie and I, when we were kids, we were drinking and smoking and doing everything that we could, and there was a stop sign. We would get a little drunk, a little high, and we would run through that stop sign with our eyes closed. We would start about a block from there, and we just close our eyes, whoever was driving, he or I, and we would drive through that stop sign.
God, you know why? Was on your side.
Yeah, you know why we did that?
Drunk,
young, dumb, yeah, all of that, every bit of that. But when I went to the military, when I came back out of the military and went to the little town we were in, and I said, hey, where's Ronnie? And they said out at Forest Lawn. I said, what the heck's he? He said, he dead. He suffered from croakification. He's out there, feeding the worm. The man is, and I said, well, what on earth happened? He was the same age I am, back then it was in the 20s. She said, well, he ran through the stop sign for some reason. He got T-boned down there. We don't really know why. I said,
You knew why.
I didn't tell anybody. I said, oh, what a shame that is. You know, but when we get to that place, anger will get us to the place where just like we're retarded, just like we're super high, super drunk, you know, and we'll do things, say things that we would not normally do. You know yourself, a normal man that's in his normal mind is not going to do something like that. Not going to take off of that highway, you know, not going to risk his life, not going to risk the lady's life in his life. Not going to do that if you're normal and you're thinking straight, even if you're angry at that person. Not going to do that. So that's why it's important for us to understand what anger does to us. You know, because anger is a natural, normal emotion. It's going to be there. But I'm going to have to accept whether or not I'm going to allow it to be part of my life. And I don't. Now, y'all remember yesterday I said I'd get frustrated. I've already been frustrated yesterday morning. I told y'all a couple of times, but I fixed it. This morning I did not get frustrated by that at all, by the thing that frustrated me yesterday. Why didn't I get frustrated by the same thing that frustrated me yesterday?
Went to the cause.
I did what? Yeah, I put the fire out. Yeah, I put the fire out because that same. I took that situation out of my life. It doesn't exist anymore. So I can't get frustrated by something that doesn't exist anymore, right? It's gone. So what happened yesterday, and I'm not going to tell y'all what happened, but what happened yesterday is not going to happen in my life anymore because took it out, right? So, say it again?
Process.
Well, I did. I processed it and all of that kind of stuff, and then I changed it. I fixed it so that's not going to happen. I was a little frustrated already this morning. Does that sound like a pattern? Every morning I'm a little frustrated. Every morning I'm a little frustrated. I'm coming to work this morning. The fog is still a little tiny bit foggy out. The fog this morning was horrendous. It was terrible. You know, it's terrible. There's a 40% chance of rain today. Much rather have rain than fog. This was some really bad, a little bit frustrating, you know, because I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and I walk outside and look at the stars and stuff, and you can't see the stars for the fog. That's a little bit frustrating, but, you know. So here's the deal. You do know that folks around here work pretty hard. Now, I know that a lot of it you can't see. A lot of the times you can't see what they're doing, you know. But Miss Casey and Miss Charnel and, you know, the counselors over at North, they're doing assessments and treatment plans and screenings, and they're doing a lot. You know, they have to do treatment plan reviews, and they have to do all of that kind of stuff, you know, so they're working really, really hard all the time, except when they're sneaking out quietly to go and suck sulfur down into their lungs so that they can die early. You know, but they do. Normally, they are working very, very hard. So what kind of danger do you think that causes for them?
Stress.
It does put a lot of stress in their life, and I will tell you that, look, you may not recognize it, you may not see it, but the RAs work very, very, very hard. You know, they have to do so much stuff. They have to keep up with you guys. They have to make sure you have your medications. They have to do all of this stuff. I had to go yesterday and stay at the emergency room from about 12:30 to about 3:30 yesterday. You know, so that stuff is stressful and all of that kind of stuff. So what happens to people when they get into those situations?
They panic and get upset.
Oh, they can get upset and they can get panicked, but one of the big things that happens, and one of the reasons we lose counselors and stuff like that, is because they get overwhelmed, right? A lot of people get overwhelmed. When here, we have 10 clients apiece, stuff like that, out at the prison. When I left the prison a few years back, they had 100 clients apiece. You think they're doing a good job at that? No. Can't possibly do it. But do you think that they may be overwhelmed by doing whatever they can do?
Yeah.
Of course they are. They're overwhelmed. There is an anger type that's called overwhelmed anger. Yesterday, we do a morning huddle and an evening huddle. This is what should happen today, and then this is what really happened today. So that's what we do every day at the evening huddle yesterday. Everybody in the room was kind of, because it was just a hard day, and we had some stuff going on, and there was a little bit of being overwhelmed, and that sometimes can manifest itself as being overwhelmed, angry. So anger comes to that. So overwhelmed anger is this kind of anger. Overwhelmed anger is unpredictable. Really don't know what it can do. It can impact your mental health over time because overwhelmed anger is that anger that's going to bring a bunch of stress in on me. And when I see, if I'm directing a facility or something and I see my counselors beginning to leave, then I know, okay, they're overwhelmed. I need to do something. At the prison, I've had people come in and say, well, look, I'm going to quit. So I would fire them before they could quit. But I would fire them for 15 minutes. And I had a place over there. There's a little table sitting there with a nice, comfortable chair and a little coffee maker. So I say, you're fired. Go sit in that chair. I don't want to sit in the chair. You don't have a choice. Go sit in the chair. And so they go sit in the chair, and they'd be there for 15 minutes. They were reading material and stuff. You couldn't have your cell phone out there. And so they would read, they would do whatever, 15, 20 minutes, and then that would allow them to let some of that stress pour away, let some of that overwhelmed feeling get away. And sometimes, we have to take a day off for mental health, just take a mental health day because we're being overwhelmed. So here's the deal. Over time, it can do a lot of stuff. This type of anger is the type of anger that builds up. Have you ever seen anybody quit a job and just walk out? Just come and just boom and walk out? I've had that happen. I've had people come and say, boom, there it is, and walk out. I saw a young lady I thought was going to get beat up. She was about this tall. She wasn't but she was the HR lady. And there was a bigger lady that she just got overwhelmed and she was done. She was quitting and she's walking down the hallway, and that young lady stepped out in front of her as she's walking down the hallway, and she said, you can't leave unless you write up the letter of resignation. And that gal said, you got about 2 seconds to move. And then the girl finally, I went over there and said, just step out, get out of her way. And it reminded me of that old country and western song, I ain't working here no more. Don't try to stand in my way. But I'm heading for the door. Because people get overwhelmed and then they'll react in anger. Yes, sir.
I've seen incidents where people leave a job. I mean, not leave a job, but come back to work and shoot up the place.
Yeah, that's disgruntled employees. He was talking about people come back and do. All of that stems from that overwhelmed anger because it builds up over time, and as it builds up, it can get to a place where it is dangerous. We need to be able to recognize that that's going on in our lives. So it builds up over time, especially when you don't find ways to express or communicate how they feel.
Yeah.
Now, look, I know some folks don't appreciate it here at North. Sometimes my boss lady, sometimes other people, but I will express my frustration. Right? I will tell you when I'm frustrated. I will tell you when Caitlin did something. I will do something. I will let you know when I'm. Why do I do that?
Release.
Just to release it. That's what we're supposed to do with that type of frustration, with that type of anger. If we don't, it builds up on us. So I'm going to, every now and then, I have the nicest boss in the world. Miss Sierra's my boss. She's just really, really nice. And sometimes I'll go to her office, close the door, and go over there and sit down and tell her how the cow eats the corn. She's learned that. So now when I'm in there telling her how the cow eats the corn, she's sitting over there just going, still working. Because she knows I'm just telling her because I'm telling her. I'm letting her know what's going on. So here's the deal. I do a little bit of venting, but I don't leave it at venting. because I have to put the fire out, whatever that fire is, right? If I can't put the fire out, what am I going to do? I'm going to go find somebody who can put the fire out, because without the fire being put out, nothing works. Doesn't work. Venting doesn't work like that. So you have to be able to express, communicate how you feel. It is better for me to tell you, you doing that in this group frustrates me, than it is for me to go back, be frustrated, and let that boil up, let that build up, and then a couple of days later screaming and yelling at somebody, which I don't do. I will point things out to you, but I'm not going to do that. That keeps that level of overwhelmed anger down, at frustration level is down, where it's manageable. So I can deal with it. If you hurt my feelings, I will tell you. You doing that in group, not paying any attention to me, doing whatever he's doing, drawing pictures and stuff like that. That hurts my feelings, because I know you're not paying attention. I have people tell me, yes, I am. I'm paying attention. It might look like I'm sleeping, but I'm really paying attention. No, you're not. Just, you're a low down, no count, no good for nothing, lower than a snake's belly in a wagon rut, lying piece of slime. And that's just how I feel. But I'm not. Look, but I'm not overwhelmed.
Can you repeat that one more time?
I'm finna get y'all ladies over there. Come help me, because I'm finna get beat up over here. Yes.
Have you heard the one when they had the head down? The boss come in and say, "I'm praying."
Yeah, amen. Break their head and say amen. Yeah. And look, I do know some of the times that people, when they appear not to be paying attention, they really are. I do know that they really are. And I do know that some people, I'm crying. I do know that some people, they do something that's not that breaks the rules unaware. So we have to give give allowances for all of that kind of stuff, because some people's attention is they pay attention in different ways. When I'm looking at somebody that I believe that person's not paying attention to me at all, they really are. I've gone and I've shook somebody's chain before, way back, and man, you're not paying attention. They tell me exactly what I said, what I meant, and all of this kind of stuff, but they had been doing something that to me looked like they wasn't paying attention. So I'm going to mention that you're not paying attention, but you could be. So y'all just know that. Sometimes I do understand that one. So it may show itself when things hit a boiling point. Things get to that place of their ability to cope with anger, our ability to cope with the anger and stress has been overwhelmed due to certain situations, feelings, or interactions. This stuff's been building up on me all the time. Mr. Adams was talking about the guy that came back and shot the place up. That anger was building up from the first day when the boss told him that he didn't do enough work the day before. And so that came up. And then somebody else says, hey, you know what? You have halitosis today. And that went up a little bit up. Somebody else said, hey, we need to do this instead of what you're doing. And that frustration level went up, and it goes up, and it goes up, and it goes up until, boom, they just explode. So those things, that's why I have people that come to me that call themselves ragers. They're not ragers. What they are is overwhelmed. And they've had that anger building for 15 years. That anger's been there for 15 years, and it's been building up for 15 years. And then after 15 years, it explodes. And they do something, say something, call something, and then they say, well, I'm just a rager. No, you're not. You've had that stuff in your heart and in your mind for 15 years, and it's been getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, and then suddenly it explodes. So, overwhelming anger can look like a sudden snap of irritability and resentment, following a long stretch of repression. I'm holding it in. I had a guy tell me one time that his parents told him to push his anger down. Hold it in. Push that anger down. Is that good advice? No, that's stupid. Now, I'm not saying his parents are stupid. I never met them. But I will tell you that advice is stupid. That's not because you can't press it. You keep pressing it down, it keeps building up, and someday you're going to do something really dumb, right? So what we need to do is bring that out in manageable ways, right? Ways we can deal with it. So it says while the expression of overwhelmed anger appears difficult or different for everybody, it will come on suddenly and may be preceded by some stressful event. The type of anger is often seen in staff where they're overworked, but also in clients where they're overworked. Sometimes, look, we have to follow all the rules, right? We have to do our treatment plans. We have to do this and do that. Go see this person. Go to all these goofy groups. Got to listen to Dr. Garner. All of that stuff. Sometimes it can get like that. I've had clients come unglued on me in the past. And when you look, you don't get angry yourself. You don't go nuts and all of that stuff. You look at all the stuff that's been building up over the course of treatment, right? And I don't have the greatest coping skill that I've ever had, which is alcohol and drugs. That was my coping skill. I don't have that anymore. So I've got to learn how to cope with all of that. So managing overwhelmed anger requires earlier intervention. What does that mean? I got to
where it explodes.
Yeah, and we got to catch that thing when it starts up. That's why I do not let aggravation stay with me. I don't let it. Y'all look. I go home at night. I have several. I have what's called my nighttime duties. I have to clean out the vacuum. We got one of these little vacuums that runs around the floor by itself. You push a button and then it goes, start cleaning, and it'll take off and start cleaning. But then we have a husky, and so it'll fill up with husky hair. And so every night that's my job, to clean that thing out. And then I have to feed the cats or the possums or whatever's eating the cat food outside. And then I make the bed and I do the things that I do every night, and then I go sit in front of my television, and sometimes I'll nap. And then about 8 o'clock, I get up and I go to bed, and I fall right off to sleep. And you can only do that when you are not overwhelmed, or you're not anxious, and you don't have any of those things.
Why do you make your bed at night?
Because my wife, I get up at 4 in the morning, and I go and do all of the stuff that I do, and she stays in bed till about 7, 8, whatever, and then she gets up. But she is, she has issues, so she's not going to do it. So when I get in at night, that's one of the chores I have to do, make sure the bed's ready for that night. Yeah,
That makes sense.
So, yeah, but the deal is that I go home and I'm calm, collected. I feel good. I'm not stressed out, and I go to sleep and I sleep well. The point is, and you guys know it, and you ladies know it, I am very verbal about the things that bother me. I do that. When I get frustrated, I let you know. If Miss Cynthia frustrates me, I let her know. If Mark frustrates me, I'm gonna let him know. I will not hold that stuff in. I'm like a sieve. It's all open. It's gonna come out. You're gonna know it. And I'll tell you what, I appreciate that in other people. So if there's something that I do that frustrates you or something, you come tell me. Hey. And there's some people here that will do that. And I really appreciate that, because what that does is keep your emotions where they're supposed to be. And I can look, if you don't let that stuff build up, and don't worry about hurting my feelings. Come do it. If there's something I've done or said that hurt your feelings or frustrated you or something, come and tell me that, and we can certainly talk about that. We can talk about it. But I will tell you if you hurt my feelings too. So that way, neither one of us has to stay up tonight going, I hate that part. Man, I'm gonna put something in their food tomorrow. We're not gonna do that, because we're not going to be at that level. So it says, look, while the expression of it's different for everyone, it's going to come suddenly. This type of anger is often seen as staff. It's due, and it's in nature of what we're doing and all of that stuff. Here's some of the ways to manage overwhelmed anger. Managing overwhelmed anger requires early intervention. That means I got to catch it early. That means I need to deal with my frustration while it's still frustration. Because frustration is the first cousin to anger. And if I don't deal with the frustration, it's going to turn into anger. So I need to deal with the frustration before it has the opportunity to turn into anger, right? So that's why I need to express my frustration. And that's why I do. One of the things that we're supposed to be here are role models. We're supposed to be role modeling how we're supposed to deal with all of this kind of stuff. This is what it looks like to be sober for 26 years. It's what it looks like to be sober for 10 years. Mr. Farmer sober for 10 years. This is what it looks like, to be able to express my frustration. Let me ask you this. Do you believe that once you begin to express your frustration, that everybody around you is going to be appreciative of that? No. Yeah, and I get that a lot too, when I get, even just like a while ago, I was expressing some frustration and everybody here will kill me. Want to beat me up, chop me up, put me in the bean soup thing out there. Just yeah, because that old adage, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt. That's not true. Words are worse than sticks or stones. Oh, they can hurt you bad. Yeah, so here's the deal. We need to recognize what's happening inside of us before reaching that level of frustration that we're going to become, or we're going to allow ourselves to become angry. Early warning signs come in a lot of different forms, but they may include just being tired. When I saw a big level of frustration yesterday in the staff, I recognized that everybody was tired. Just tired. Everybody. Yesterday was a stressful day. And so everybody was just tired. So I could see that. Becoming disconnected. Irritated. Sometimes, I know I need to go sit in my office because everything that's going on is irritating me. And I cannot pinpoint exactly what it is that is irritating me. So I'll go sit in my office and pray about it, think about it, figure out what's irritating. Sometimes we need to pay attention to how we're communicating, because when we're communicating in a passive aggressive way, then that's telling us that, hey, you know what, I'm frustrated, and that's getting deeper, and I may be frustrating at that person because when I'm talking to them, you're a really nice guy, but you say some stupid stuff. I've had people tell me that a lot. I like you, but you don't know how to talk to people. That is what? That's passive aggressive. You're a really nice guy. I like you, but you're stupid. That's passive aggressive. One of them is passive when I come up and say, you're a really nice person. And then it's aggressive when I say, but you have a body odor. That's passive aggressive. Do I need to know if I have a body odor?
Yes.
Sure. And here's the deal. If I come in here one day and I'm smelling, I want you to come tell me I'm smelling. But you don't have to be passive about it to start. You come up and say, Dr. Garner, you have a body odor. That's assertive. Because what that's doing is helping you and helping me. But when you come up and say, I like you. I really like the way you do those groups and everything. But you stink. That's passive aggressive. We don't need to be doing that, because that's what's going to help. That tells me that you are frustrated with what I'm doing. And if you're frustrated with what I'm doing, you're usually frustrated with the way that you're receiving it. So that's some of the tips for dealing with overwhelmed anger. So this one is, the next one is we talk about this one all of the time, but, we'll get specific on it. Passive-aggressive anger. Well, when we talk about passive aggressiveness, usually we're talking about our communication skills, our communicate, the way that we communicate. We either communicate aggressively, passively, or assertively. And then we throw in passive aggressiveness in there. So aggressive is when I get in your face, right? And that's not the way to do it. I don't want you in my face. I don't want you yelling at me. I don't want anybody cussing at me. I don't want to do that. I'm not going to do that to you, and I don't want you to do that to me, whoever you might be. I don't want that to happen. The second thing is passive. That's me always getting my way. That's you listening to me, you never saying anything. I have a couple that's at our church. He is an aggressive communicator. When he wants to talk, he wants to get right in my face and, okay, back off. And she's passive. I have heard her say, last Wednesday night, she read a portion out of the Bible. First time I've ever heard her do that. Because she's very passive. Assertive is when I figure out, how to do it that makes it okay for you and okay for me at the same time. It's a win-win situation. Aggressive is I win all the time because I'm pushing you around. Passive is you win all the time because you're pushing me around. Assertive is we both win. Passive aggressive, there's no winner in that at all. That's me beginning passively and then ending aggressive. Yeah. So passive aggressive anger is unique.
So, Dr. Jones, being assertive is where you want to be all the time.
Being assertive is what I want to be, and that's what I try to be. That's what I strive to be. That's my goal. I want to be assertive because look, I'm going to protect my rights, my needs, my wants, but at the same time, I'm protecting your needs, your wants. I need to figure out, I need to understand that we all have needs and wants, desires and goals.
So assertive is being both ways. I thought it would be both ways. But can you give me the definition?
Assertiveness is
structure.
It is for you and for me. Yeah. I mean, it's a win-win situation. When we're doing things assertively, that means you're going to come out of this in a good shape, and I'm going to come out of this in good shape as well. That's assertiveness. Passiveness means that you're going to win every time, I'm going to lose every time because I'm passive. Aggressive means I'm going to win every time and you're going to lose every time. Yeah. And that's not good. See, so assertiveness is what we need to be. And it is possible for everybody to win. And not when you're playing football or anything like that, but in life, it's possible for everybody to win. Yeah. So, passive-aggressive anger is an avoidant form of expression. This kind of anger occurs when somebody suppresses how they feel and attempts to avoid all types of conflict. This can be dangerous. As self-esteem levels are often impacted by anger. As such, passive-aggressive anger can have a negative influence on relationships. A lot of couples have to deal with passive-aggressive anger. It can be verbal or it can be physical. It includes emotional repression and avoidance of conflict and therefore resolution of issues. If I'm avoiding any kind of conflict, then I'm not going to get anything resolved. Nothing's going to be done. Nothing's going to be taken care of. This may present itself in passive-aggressive comments, such as, I like your outfit, even though it don't fit you. And, that's passive-aggressive. Sarcasm. I don't know anybody that uses sarcasm.
No.
I don't know that. Come on.
Every man in the mirror.
Or an intentional lack of response. You ever had anybody that would just stonewall you, that would just not speak to you, just not talk back to you? That's a form of passive-aggressive anger. I had a guy got angry at me. I was his director out of the prison, and he was a counselor. And I will tell you, I've told you about this guy before. The best, as far as documentation, best counselor I've ever seen. He's given up his license because he got tired of fooling with it. But he was a fabulous counselor. But he got angry with me about something, and I went over to the mess hall. They call it the ODR. I went over to the ODR, went and got me a little something to eat. His name is Mike. Mike's sitting down there by himself at a whole table. So I went and sat down at the table where Mike was. As soon as I sat down, he picked up his plate, walked off, and went to another table and sat down. Yeah, well, that's passive aggressiveness, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, okay. So that was pretty good.
That's like blocking you off too. That's stonewalling.
Yeah, it is stonewalling, and that hurt my feelings. So anyway, it may present itself that way. Sarcasm, lack of response, passive aggression is most common in verbal form, but it can also look like closed off body language, continuous procrastinating at work. You ever had anybody that was doing part of the work there at the job and they were procrastinating? They just wouldn't do it today. I've seen that fairly recently. I've seen, folks who just not did. Look, we are behind in all of this. Okay, well, you need to do so. Okay. Oh well, okay, it'll be all right. But just not being very worried about the fact that you are all of that. So procrastinating. These are some tips to deal with that. Help just come to a place where you realize the unmet needs existing underneath that passive aggressiveness. It's hard to say. What are we really trying to say? If I'm trying to say something, look, I usually, if I'm going to come talk to you about something, I do a lot of kidding and joking and all of that kind of stuff. And sometimes there's a kernel of truth in that. If I'm picking at you, you just need to pick it loose and say, hey, okay, there may be a kernel of truth in that. But if I'm going to talk to you about something that's serious, I'm going to come talk to you about that's serious. When if you get written up, you have to come to my office. And when you come to my office and sit down, I'm not playing. Get there. I'm serious when you get to my office. So there's no passive aggressiveness going on there at all. I'm being assertive. This is what I need you to do, and it's going to be good for you when you do it. But we need to look. If somebody's coming and doing something passive aggressive toward you, or if you yourself, and I use passive aggressivity sometimes, but if I'm doing that, you need to find out what it is that you are trying to really say to that person. Do you not like that person? Are you better off without that person? Whatever it is, you need to be honest about it. Just let them know that. So what fears do we have about actually being honest and about our needs?
Rejection.
Yeah. Rejection. Now, that's a lot of it. We're afraid of being rejected, so we go over there and act like a butthead. And a lot of times, what does that cause? It can cause a fight, but it also can cause rejection. We're afraid of being rejected, so we go over there and come off at people with passive aggressiveness, and they reject us. Now, I don't like passive aggressive people. I don't want that kind of communication going on. So passive aggressive tends to be rooted in attachment insecurity. What does that mean? Remember we talked about the biggest reason that ladies have anger issues is because they have a fear of abandonment. So they have a fear of abandonment. So a lot of this passive aggressiveness is rooted in that insecurity. So trying to strengthen vulnerability with ourselves and others can help manage this type of anger. What does that mean? When I develop vulnerability in myself, what does that mean? Yeah, I'm open. I'm vulnerable. I'm going to take it to heart. If I insult you, if I say something, do something that really, is insulting to you or hurt your feelings or something, you need to tell me that. And I'm vulnerable. I'm open to that. You can come tell me that anytime, and look, I'll look at that. I absolutely. I had a fellow that was in this group, and he met me in the hallway and told me, he said, man, when you said this, it made me feel like this. Never meant for it to make him feel like that or anybody else, But that was something that happened in his childhood, that when he just heard that group of words put together that way, made him feel that. And so okay. And so look, I've used that group of wording again, but not while he was here. I had to wait till after he was gone, because I certainly don't want to continue doing something that's going to hurt somebody's feelings, right? So we don't want to do that. So trying to strengthen vulnerability is going to help. If you get passive aggressive, then you need to learn that the cycle as soon as you recognize it and repair it immediately. If you see that type of anger in you, then you need to, as soon as you recognize, hey, that was a passive aggressive statement that I just said to that person. I may be suffering from passive aggressive anger. The moment you recognize that that might be happening, you stop. You cut that off. And that will help you deal with that level of anger. There are some people, and I know some people, who, when they communicate, that's the only way they communicate. They always are passive aggressive. They're always picking you up to put you down. And you just know that when they're coming. Here comes so-and-so. I know they're fixing to tell me something. It's going to be good. But then they're going to knock my socks off. They're going to come up and say, you did a really good job today. I wish you could do that more often. What? I thought I did a good job every day, but not according to them. I did a good job today, but if you recognize that person, they don't affect that. There's a lady that does. She doesn't affect me, at all, because I know where she is. I know where she's coming from. But here's the deal: what do you do when somebody's coming at you in that vein? I'm going to tell them. Yeah, I'm going to tell them. If I'm going to be honest, and if I'm going to deal with the frustration in my life, I want to let that person know when they come and say, you know what, you just smell so good today. That covers that stink from your feet. I'm going to have to tell them, look, okay, that's causing a little frustration in my life. Do you know that that's passive aggressive? If you've got something you really need to tell me, tell me. And we'll just talk about it. We don't have to, you don't have to butter me up to butter me out. You don't have to do that. So, that's what I'm going to do. Because y'all know I let my frustrations out, and I don't live an angry life. I don't. I just tell it. I'm going to tell you. And that doesn't work as well as I'd like it to with my wife, but that's still who it is. I'm going to do that. So repair it immediately. Get it out of your life. We don't need it in our life because it's going to. If it leads to anger, it can lead to some place we don't want to go. And I don't want to go somewhere. Are there things that make me angry?
Yeah. Every day. Sleeping in group. Walking through there group. Eating in group.
Everybody.
That don't make you frustration.
Yeah, every one of y'all wrong. See, and it hurts my. See that now? Look, talk about being frustrated. That hurts my feelings. That hurts my heart. Yeah. No, there's nothing that makes me angry. Nothing you can do. Nothing that the staff does. Nothing that my boss does. Nothing that the devil does makes me angry. I sometimes choose to get angry myself. So know this. If I get angry in the group, that's because I want to get angry in the group. Sometimes there's good reason for it. There are some things out there that happen in the world that I will allow to make me angry. And I will get angry about that. But when I get angry about those things that happen out there, injustice makes me angry. And, injustice is something I will allow myself to get angry over. I don't like that. Yes, sir.
Jesus just told us you don't get angry.
I don't.
You turn right around and say you do get angry.
No. See, that's frustrating because you ain't listening. What I said is there's nothing you can do to make me angry. And that's the whole teaching today, is nothing that can happen can make you angry. You have to choose to get angry. So if I'm angry at anything, it's because I want to be. I want to be angry. Injustice, if somebody's doing something to people that they should not be doing, that I will allow make me angry. I just will. And there's a ton of other things that you may see me angry, but when you see me angry, that's because I want to be angry. And when I see you angry, that's because you want to be angry. It's not because I made you angry. I can't make you angry. I can do stuff that you don't like, and then you can decide I'm gonna get angry. I'm just gonna get angry. But me, I'm going to allow myself usually to be frustrated. And when that frustration comes, I'm going to tell you that you're frustrating the heck out of me. That's frustrating to me. I tell the staff, look, I don't do that. That frustrates me. I've never been angry with any of my staff. Never been angry with any of the people, any of the clients here. I've been frustrated. There's some people I won't tell you who they are. We don't want to point anybody out, but there are people in this that have frustrated me. But when they come back after a while and say, "Well, I don't know what happened," you say, "Okay, that's a little frustrating." So we're going to take our break. We'll come back at about 15 after, and we'll start again.
Yes, ma'am.
After break, I'm gonna have it individual session. Okay.
You get to decide.
I'm still on this one. I want this one. I get something different. That's what it's about.
Yes.
All right.
Okay. After break.
You see when you said what I did.
And that's what look.
Yes, sir.
That is good. That's you.
Lord. This brother, I gotta tell you. I don't drink coffee. Everybody. Next week.
So I 6 more days.
Oh, good. Amen. Good. I'll swing that way.
Thanks, guys.
Good morning, Stacy. Okay.
Oh, tree.
Well, one for my son.
Gentlemen, I have to go to a meeting. Miss, can you do something for the rest of this little class?
No.
If there's somebody there at North, I do apologize, but I have to go to a meeting. So